Greetings everyone and welcome to the BlastCast. I am Jarrus, and with me as always is the man who loves to quantum leap, Lightning Dragon.
I've actually seen that show ages and ages and ages ago.
That
it was interesting.
It was a damn good show. Well, let's go ahead and, before we get into around the verse and all that stuff, let's go ahead and deal with the elephant in the room, which of course is agent smithing. On the Calling All Devs, a question about agent smithing, if it was still going to be incorporated into the game, was asked, and basically it was answered no. But it had a lot to do with the way I think that it was being presented. Lando came out later and clarified with this, and you can pause it here if you want to read that real quick. Basically, they were approaching it along the idea that somehow you were jumping as your character directly into an NPC. I don't know many people who actually thought that that was the way it was going to work. I really looked at it more as a quantum leap kind of event. You jump into an NPC, whichever one's available, and you run the NPC with their equipment and whatever. It's just that you don't rely on the NPC's stats anymore.
Oh, no, not the heels, not a woman again.
So you'd have, like, if you had an NPC crew and you had someone who was on the other side of the galaxy, and you're like, oh, hey, you know, I'm kind of worried about this mission. I really want you in, like, the gunner seat or something. Then you could come his NPC. It wasn't you teleporting across the universe.
It won't affect the economy or anything like that. In fact, it's the same effect on the economy as if you're not playing your character at all or you're logged off. Basically, all you're doing is having the ability to quickly join together with a friend who may be doing exploration, or maybe they're in a capital ship out on a 3-month tour, way out, you know, waiting to find their Gilligan's Island.
No, that's a 3-hour tour.
You gotta expand it for space a bit, though.
No. That's faster travels.
But the thing is that no matter what, the idea of agent smithing is integral to multiplayer in Star Citizen, and I don't think it's a feature that you're going to see removed. And I think that the answer in general was just them
clarifying
badly, like stepping in it. But you know, it's saying you can't do something that most people didn't already think that you would be able to do anyway. So not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Just move on and let them develop it the way that most of us thought they were going to do it anyway.
Yeah, and I can't see them removing it anyway. I mean,
no.
They clarified, probably, hopefully tried to, that it's more of you can take control of an NPC. Because it would be really weird for them to take it out. Because imagine if...
It's been mentioned several times by Chris Roberts as a feature.
Yeah, but I mean, let's, you know, you throw the argument out there like, oh, well, maybe they are going to remove it. It's so key to being able to play this game because it's supposed to be a big multiplayer game you can play with your friends. So if Jarrus, you know, quit his job and all he did was play Star Citizen all day long, and you know, I was busy like I usually am, unfortunately, and he was like, oh man, you know, I'm out in Bakalakadakistan and I really need you to come out here and help me. You know, my ship is good, but I can't rely on my NPCs because, you know, they're NPCs. So it'd be like, okay, well, you know, I can jump on and I can go and help him. But instead of, you know, me flying the ship out there, which could take me a couple days, depending on how far Jarrus has been, it takes me a couple seconds to just load up his instance. And that promotes playing with your friends as opposed to playing by yourself, which is a key component to the entire game, which is they've been selling us on this entire time. So it makes absolutely no sense for them to get rid of this.
Yeah. In fact, Elite Dangerous kind of did something similar where people can jump into your ship and sit in different seats, basically acting as the invisible NPC crew that were there, but now they're represented by holograms or whatever, and they actually can bring more skills to the table as players than the systems that are kind of either automated. Automated. Automation and NPCs sitting in a chair is basically the same thing. So they kind of did this similar thing of quantum leaping, agent smithing directly into a position, and it works as long as you don't have people jumping into your ship randomly like Elite Dangerous does, where they start shooting friends or friendlies, and then suddenly your cops are after you and you get your ship blown up.
And that is an instance of how bad to implement.
That's how not to do it.
Yeah.
Always, it should require permission, like so-and-so wants to jump into one of your teammates, or one of your NPCs, I mean, and you just go, okay, they have permission, and then boom, they're allowed in. That's it.
They could tie it into the party mechanics as well.
Yeah.
So you join someone's party, and then it's like, oh well, they're out here. Would you like to take control of one of their NPCs? And you just say yes or no.
Yeah. All different ways, but as long as it's not some random stranger, I'm good with it. Let's get into Around the Verse with probably the best title of any Around the Verse ever, Up Your Arsenal. That is amazing. It is about guns, more guns, with some guns on the side. So I'll be running that footage in the background. Not too much to talk about there. Of course, the primary thing this week outside of Around the Verse is that Evocati is now in testing, or I should say, I am out there testing in the Evocati build. And that's once again, the difficult part is being able to play with things that I can't talk about with you guys, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, it was a lot easier back when you weren't, because then it's like, oh, well, you know,
I can discuss all the leaks. Now I can't because I have an NDA, so oh well, it is what it is, guys. Kind of shot myself in the foot there, didn't I?
A little bit, yeah. Oh well.
The Reverse the Verse was kind of interesting. Talked about ships, ship mechanics, some of the changes to the core features of the game. Now, one of the things they discussed was why data calling was pushed back, and along with the FPS AI that was pushed back, along with the Mustang rework. And also they did kind of break into a little bit the ship modularity, how it originally was basically having modularity, moved to variants, and down the road it's possible that modularity may come back, but to what extent it's not necessarily known. I would like to see that modularity come back, because I look at the variants as starting packages. Like I'm gonna like you buy a car and say, okay, I want this car, and I also want the leather seats, and I want the off-road tires, or whatever. You have your base. Like for example, let's use the Avenger, right? You have the Avenger Titan, and you say, okay, well, I want to be a bounty hunter, so you step it up to the next level. Oh, you want EMP, you step it up to that level. But those parts should probably be removable, maybe with the exception of the Warlock, because that EMP is the entire bag. I think it's like be taking off a chunk of your ship. But the point is that for the most part, those things should be removable down the road. I really hope that's what they do, because that would be very much in the spirit of what we had originally.
Yeah, the original backing thing. It also kind of just factors down to how they build the ships. I mean, if you build a ship with the idea that, oh, well, you know, we can add things or take things out of this room, and then it's just a 1 or a 2 on your ship stats page where you pull all the information, all the visual data and everything. It just goes, okay, it has these options, and it just pulls them in. I don't think it's really that hard as far as if you make it that way from the start. I think most likely what it is they didn't do that. So to make it modular now would mean they have to go back and rebuild every single one of the ships, and that's going to take too much time.
Yeah, let's just get things up and running now. We'll deal with other stuff down the road. For the Calling All Devs, we already covered part of it when they got into the discussion of agent smithing, but there was one other thing they wanted to talk about. There was a question about the plans for implementing working escape pods. Now, they did describe the escape pods as being, they have limited thrust. They basically have enough to get away from the ship and enough to arrest their motion to wait at a persistent location, but you can't actually just fly around with them, which makes sense. That's fine. The reason they're not implemented is because they are considered essentially seats in a ship, and they have to get it set up in a certain way that, well, when the parts of the ship despawn or whatever from destruction, that the escape pod also doesn't despawn since it was originally part of that ship, leaving you kind of floating in space by yourself.
So it would have to be small ships attached to a large ship.
Yeah, it's the persistent parts that get detached from ship. Right now, basically, if a wing gets blown off a ship, it will eventually disappear. I think what they want to do is have all those parts persistent to some level, which will be fine with data calling and the container system when it's implemented, because then you won't be responsible for tracking all that unless you're in the area. That's fine. But that's all part of this whole system that needs to come in first.
I can see having a limited amount of persistence, like let's say 24 hours or so, because if there's a really, really hot engagement area, it's going to be cluttered up real fast.
That's true.
So they'd have to either go, oh, well, there's X amount of assets in this one area, and start removing the oldest ones. But I like the idea of them having them linger, because if they're going to bring... Right, salvage into play, obviously. So, I mean, if you're like, oh, man, yeah, there was this huge battle over here. I was, in my fighter or bomber or whatever, and we blew up like 10 ships or something. And you, first of all, you can make a mission out of that, sell information to people. Or if you have a salvage ship yourself, or you have a friend with a salvage ship, be like, oh, man, you got to come out here. There's like 20 wrecked ships. There was an absolute monstrous battle.
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you just brought something to my mind with that. Like, okay, talk about the 24 hours disappear thing?
Yeah.
What if it gets towards 24 hours and the NPCs start coming in and salvaging it if the players don't?
Yeah.
And basically, you'll have like NPC companies of salvagers who'll go out and start tearing it down. In a sense, removing it from the server, adding it back into the economy as scrap. And basically, that would be an interesting way to do it. And it would have give NPCs tasks, task-oriented.
It would also promote a healthy economy because you'd have missions that would be like, haul this scrap to you know, whatever place.
Just a quick thought.
Off the top of our head. So here's a really weird question. They're talking about storage for like the Aurora and the 300 series, and the way it was phrased, I'm not sure if it's like personal equipment or cargo equipment, but from the sounds of things, it kind of sounds like it might be for like clothes, EVA suits, things like that, because these
Guns,
ships are pretty small. Yeah. And the 300 series is the one that caught my eye because there was a fan remake, and I don't know if you still have that footage lurking around, where someone went through and the little passageway where you walk up to the seat, they made it where all the stuff folds out. So you had like a little bathroom,
that was awesome.
A bed, a little kitchen, and
even the toilet, it all folded out from the inside.
Yeah, it was really ingenious, and that's kind of why seeing that question is like maybe they were talking about personal equipment because the 300 series is still in rework.
Yeah. They totally turned the 300 series into a go-go gadget, whatever, and the door opened or slid open, and there it was. It was amazing. But yeah, there should be like places where you can put your guns or whatnot, because if you've got a rail gun strapped to your back, it's kind of hard to sit down. So maybe you have a place to hang that or stick that or whatever. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to have to be some of those things taken into consideration to allow for those kind of ships to have a more open interior. Even the Aurora's got a more open interior than, say, a Hornet. And when you're flying something like a fighter where you don't have the ability to store larger weapons or whatnot, I think that I think they need to restrict what you can equip. Like, okay, I'm a pilot, I can carry a pistol on me in a fighter cockpit because where am I going to put this rifle?
They could tie that into your suit, because at one time they were talking about different flight suits, and like if you had a basic flight suit, you could fly anything. Well, maybe that only has one hard point, and it's a pistol hard point.
Right, exactly.
Where if you get into like a medium one, well, medium suits, maybe you can have like a
Vanguard. You can wear like heavier armor or something like that. Like you can wear like light armor, and if you're and anything past light armor would be like ground troops, medium, heavy, those kind of things. Because once again, having all those big weapons strapped all over you when you're sitting in a very confined space, it just looks weird, and it doesn't really mesh very well with the game. It's not
very immersive, even though I hate really using that word. But to stay on this topic for just a moment longer, this makes sense because they were showing off in one of the 3.0 teaser videos where the guy walked up in, it was the Connie when they were driving the buggy out, and he went to one of the storage lockers and pulled out his EVA suit and I think a gun too.
Yeah, he pulled out, I think, a sniper rifle. Yeah, so just some general thoughts on that. Pretty straightforward. As a final note here, I just kind of want to say something really quick about delays in Star Citizen. Now, we are critical on this channel of things that we feel that Star Citizen is doing wrong, mostly when it comes to unified flight controls and their flight model, which frankly is terrible. But I will not disparage them for making a decision where they look at something and say, it's not the snuff to be released yet. Because the reason that the game was private funded, private backed, was because we did not want the AAA release schedule of good enough, let's just throw it out there, and Ubisoft the hell out of it. If they announced, for example here, that they delayed the data calling, and if they've moved back the Mustang, and if they've pushed back the ground FPS AI because they weren't satisfied with it, I'm fine with that. In fact, having more time, next 3 months, for them to refine that and bring those things together will probably give a better overall experience, because would you want right now NPC AI running around without data calling? I wouldn't. That would probably cause massive frame rate issues. So let's let them put all that together in a nice, neat package and just be patient. So once again, I'm willing to criticize them where they're doing wrong, but I feel they're making the right decision here. Just have to give them a bit more time to get it all smoothly locked together. All right, later on this week, I have kind of something different. On Thursday, I have a video coming out that is, of course, about DCS as I'm moving forward in my experience and trying to answer that question, do I want DCS in space?
I'll give you a hint. Probably.
Depends. It depends on a certain part, but I would say that there are aspects of it that are definitely worth pursuing. Lex Talionis has made a video that will be coming out Thursday where he's going to walk through real-world carrier operations and what it takes to get a group of planes down on the deck in the real world and how it applies in DCS, and also with the information of how carriers are supposed to operate, how you set up a carrier in the game so that you're able to land effectively. And later in the week after that, MHE, you might remember him from the video The Rotation Conundrum, takes me out and tries to teach me the A10 simulator level model for the first time. And as all things go, it's really, really hard, and there's a lot of buttons needed on that plane. Oh my gosh. You need, for example, optimally, you need 6 hat switches alone, not counting other buttons. So stay tuned for that one. That is a real experience, but wow, the detail on that plane, mind-blowing. Alright guys, well that's about everything for this week's BlastCast. As always, leave your comments and suggestions down below, and we will read them and maybe even respond to them. Alright guys, we will catch you next time.
Bye-bye.